What's up, everybody? I'm former quarterback Malik Rosier, and if football, sports interviews, and having a good time interests you, then make sure to click the like and subscribe button as it really does help support this channel, and it also makes sure that you guys never miss a new video. How's everyone doing? And welcome back to another episode of the Malik Rosier Show. Super excited for you guys to be here, and thank you for joining me. So to get right into it, we're going to go ahead and go through my week 1 through 12 top games of the week. First, LSU, Florida State. I got Florida State beating LSU. I think that with Travis Jordan, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, and those guys, I think that they might be a little too much for LSU. I do believe that LSU with Henry Perkins can actually keep, Jordan Travis in the pocket. Henry Perkins Jr. is a fast middle linebacker. He has elite speed. He has really, really good instincts. So I think this will be a very, very competitive game, not only on the offensive side for, Florida State and LSU has Jaden Daniels at quarterback, but also for the defensive side. There's some studs. Javard Vars from Florida State, defensive end. So I think this is going to be a very, very highly competitive, highly talented game that I'm super excited to watch. But I think for this one, I might have to go with Florida State. I think they have a lot of hype. I think it's week 1. I think they have a lot of chemistry. So I think that Florida State will nudge LSU. I think that this game is a little later in the season. I'd probably give it to LSU over Florida State. Week 2, Texas at Alabama. I like Quinn Ewers. I don't know who the quarterback for Alabama is going to be. I think that does give me some issues. But the biggest thing I'll say is that I have faith in Nick Saban. Nick Saban is a defensive guy. He wants to run the balls. At the end of the day, if I can create a really good defense, I can get 4 or 5 yards a pop, and I can find a quarterback that can hit a half-decent open receiver. Nick Saban can win some games. And so I got Alabama, especially being at Alabama. This was flipped and it was at Texas. I think I would actually give it to Texas. But I think with that Alabama, a young quarterback playing a really good team, being at home, having a crowd on his side, I think really, really helps him. And so I think Alabama late in the game winds up nudging Texas. Next, South Carolina versus Georgia. This is a really big game. You have 2 really good quarterbacks. Carson Beck at Georgia is a young guy, but super talented. Obviously, we know what Georgia does. We know Kirby Smart. We know Tom Monken. But you got South Carolina, you got Spencer Rattler, you got their whole new regime coming, you got their, recruits that they're getting in. And so I think this is going to be a really good game. It's going to be at Georgia. And I like Georgia. I would say that Georgia is a very, very nice stadium. It's not the most intimidating. Like I've been in some really wild stadiums, but I say that I bet you for the South Carolina game, they're going to go crazy. They're going to be yelling and screaming. And so I'm super excited to see this game. I think it's going to be a really, really good one in the hedge. Number 4, Florida State at Clemson. Florida State's going to Death Valley. Again, I like Travis Jordan. I like Johnny Wilson. I like Keon, but also like a lot of the pieces that, Clemson has. I was a big fan of Kate Klubnik when he came out of high school. I like Will Shipley. I like the defense that Clemson is slowly building that they've always kind of had. I will say that I think that Florida State winds up nudging this just because of Travis Jordan. I think that he's going to make plays. I think if Jared, the defensive end, can do a good job for Florida State and, creating pressure on Kay Klubnik, I think it should be a very, very long game for Clemson. I think if reverse, if Florida State cannot create pressure on Kay, then Kay would dink and dunk and dice these guys up all day. So I think a lot of it's going to have to do with, the front 7 of kind of the Clemson Florida State side. So for this one, I think I'm going to give it to Clemson. I think Clemson winds up slowly, pulling themselves away at the end. Number 5, Notre Dame at Duke. And I know it's a little weird, but I really like Notre Dame. Obviously, everyone knows about them and what they've been doing for a while with the Rudy, the gold helmet, etc. I really like Duke. Go back and look at the top 100 plays. Duke, I'm pretty sure they have 3 or 4 in like the top 25. They also have a really, really good quarterback. If you guys don't know, in Lincoln Riley, they have a really good offense. Their strength staff is getting better. They're doing a decent. I don't want to say good job. They're doing a decently good job of bringing guys in that they can kind of plug in and fit and that can help. And so I think if Notre Dame goes in there on their high horse after they win, 3 or 4 games and, Sam Hartman's rolling, if they don't be careful of Duke, Duke will beat them. I think this is their biggest sleeper game of the year on a team that is predominantly a basketball school that is slowly becoming a football school. Next, Oklahoma at Texas, Red River Showdown. I'm really going to like this. I like Dylan Gabriel and I like Venables that are at Oklahoma. I think that there's some stuff they have to figure out, but I got to go with Texas. I like Quinn Ewers. I like what they're building. It's going to be obviously in a neutral site, but I think Texas is going to pull away slowly. I think that, when they play Alabama, going back to playing like Oklahoma, it's just going to make things a little bit easier. And so I'm super interested to see what Texas does, how Quinn Ewers responds versus this game. And I do believe that Texas winds up pulling this off. Next, USC at Notre Dame. I don't know who I have. I mean, I got to go USC. I like Cliff Kingsbury. I like, Caleb Williams. I like everything that USC is building. They just added Bear Alexander, defensive tackle from Georgia. But I will say that Notre Dame has always been big and strong, and they're going to be able to hold their own. So I think this is going to be a really, really big game for both teams, especially, if Notre Dame can have a really successful win over Duke, come back and 2 weeks later beat USC. I think that they're going to finally put themselves on a really, really big national level. But I don't know if they'll be able to do that. I think with the offensive weapon that, USC has, even some of their younger freshmen, and the ability, that they just brought in with Cliff Kingsbury and his IQ of like offense and just breaking down defense in general, I think that that might be too much for Notre Dame. Next, Clemson at Miami. This one to me is a little biased, but I think this is really big for just national football in general. I'm not saying that, Miami's going to beat Clemson. It's going to make some big news, but if Miami can be close and they can lose by like a field goal or even like a touchdown, it's a really, really good game. And you see that, you're starting to have the big four. You're starting to have, Miami, Florida State, Clemson, and UNC always competing. Those four teams are battling. That's really what you want. And so I think that for a national level, for both Clemson and Miami to kind of make that statement for this year, this is going to be one of their big first games. Next, Oregon versus Utah. I really like this. I like Bo Nix. I think some of his biggest challenges of this year going to Utah, playing against Cam Rising, who's there. Cam's a really good quarterback. He has week one going to versus Florida, which is going to tell us a lot about him and what this Utah team is made of. But I'll say I'm going to take Oregon. I really like Bo. I really like Dan Lanning. I like their recruiting. I like, the players that they have. I know they've lost some players in the portal, over the spring, but I think that Dan's going to do a really good job of having this defense and really this offense in general ready, to beat Utah. Next, I kind of split this one. This one was really, really hard. Week 10, Washington versus USC. So again, if USC can get past Notre Dame, this is going to be one of the next big tests. Is bringing in Michael Penix Jr. and the Washington Huskies into USC and saying, hey, can we beat these guys? Can we show these guys that not only can we beat a really good defense, but if you bring in a top 5, top 4 quarterback, we're also going to beat him too. So this is going to be a really good game for USC. I think this is going to put them kind of in the driver's seat for the Pac-12, and I'm very interested to see how they compete versus Washington. Next, LSU at Alabama. I really love this game. I think this is going to be the biggest game for Alabama this entire year. It's at Alabama. I can't bet against Saban. It's very hard. I don't know. I would say that I think with this game is going to come a lot to do with that week 2. Do they change quarterbacks, or is that guy from week 2 rolling? He's doing really good. If they can find a guy that can create some type of rhythm and get this offense rolling, that I think it's going to be a really close game. If they can't, Jaden Daniels and crew will roll through them. They'll beat them by like 14-20, and Nick Saban will be pissed. So I think it's going to be a really good game for just Bama in general, because this is a game that I think that if they're not ready for it, they will get blown out by this team. And when I mean by blown out, I mean by like 14 to 20 points. So should be a super interesting game. And I always love seeing the Alabama LSU series as is. Next, Miami, Florida State, biggest rivalry. I don't care what you say. I've seen Alabama, Auburn. I will say I've never been to a Michigan, Ohio State, so I can't put that one in there. But out of a lot of the SEC rivalries, to me, this one tops all of them. Miami, Florida State, we hate each other. A lot of us are born close to each other. We played against each other. A lot of Florida boys that, just stay in the city. Obviously, I was from Alabama, so I didn't get to experience that. But a lot of my teammates had other teammates that run Florida States, or, guys at rival schools that they didn't like from high school that are now at Florida State and they're in Miami. So this is a really big game, not only for, Mario Cristobal and Mike Norvell, but just for the programs in general. You can tell both these programs are trying to do everything that they can to get their program back on top, back to where they want them to be. And so, week 11, when it comes down to it, Miami, Florida State, like, that's the game that everyone circles. And so I think it's going to be really big for college football, because when you talk about when college football was really electric, and it's still electric now, but when it was really electric was when you had like, the Miamis and Notre Dames, the USC at the top competing, battling each other. And then obviously now you have the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States. And now when you have this many teams competing at a very high level, that is excellent for college football. Last is Nebraska versus Wisconsin. You have 2 new regimes in those staffs. You have 2 new quarterbacks coming in. They're doing a complete revamp of both Nebraska and Wisconsin. I got to give it to Wisconsin. I like Braylon Allen. That's the main reason why I'm going to give it to Wisconsin. I really like their run game. I think with, when you have a run game, it takes a lot of pressure off your OC and your quarterback. And so with having Braylon Allen at Wisconsin and the offensive line that I've personally seen 2 back-to-back years, I got to go with Wisconsin this year. I'm not saying that, Nebraska can't win, but I just think that just with patterns and, the way Wisconsin is going and who they brought in and what they're doing, I think Wisconsin is a better fit by week 12 to beat Nebraska. Next, we're going to go over my top sleeper teams for each conference. For the ACC, it's Louisville. I think with their schedule, their strength of schedule, it's not the hardest. And so I think with that and the ability, they just brought in Jack Plummer, quarterback from the West Coast, guy can spin it. So not only do I have, a decently easy schedule, I have a quarterback that has experience that should come in here and help us win. So I think Louisville will be a team based on strength of schedule and the way that, the schedules are kind of made out now, that they could have a chance to actually propel past, maybe a Florida State or UNC or Miami, depending on how many losses those teams have. Next is Alabama. Again, I know it's really weird for me to say, but I think this year the top two teams is LSU and Georgia. And I think Alabama has that big quarterback situation to figure out. And if they can figure that out, they can definitely compete. But I know a lot of people this year kind of have that question mark, will Alabama be on top? Will they win, their division? Will they be back at the SEC championship? So I think they are still the dark horse in this season, unfortunately. So next, we're going to go into the Big 12, Texas Tech. I really like them. I like their quarterback. They've always kind of been the redheaded stepchild of the Big 12, where they just go out there, sling it around, have fun, and they'll beat you. So I think Texas Tech this year will do a good job of competing. I think that they might even sneak in a win versus like an Oklahoma or someone, which might shake things up inside the Big 12. So super excited to see what Texas Tech can do this year. Lastly is Utah. I like Cam Rising. I like a lot of, the pieces that they have at Utah. I think that they are missing a couple of pieces, but whenever you have experience, you have a team that, loves football and just plays hard. I think you always have the ability, especially in college football, to compete and play at a very high level. So I'm very interested to see, what Utah does and, how they compete this year, especially with having, a vet quarterback. So next we're going to go into, is the ACC done for? And to me, I think they might be. I've been a fan of the ACC. And then I'll say there was some stuff that happened within the ACC, like rule changes and even some of like the TV deal contracts that I got that I just felt like were not it. I felt like people were just accepting and no one negotiated like prices or long-term deals or anything like that. So I think because of that, they're going to lose Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State, and Miami. And if that happens, if you lose your Big Four, you're done. Not only is, Miami and UNC, one of your top basketball schools, are also for the last, I don't know, maybe the last 10 years, but in the past, they've been some of your biggest, football schools as well. Now you're taking out Florida State, and you're taking out Clemson, who are, new, really big power. I don't want to say new because Florida State's been around, especially Clemson, but you're having new, people come around that is about to be really, really highly competitive and potentially win national championships that you could lose. And so I think if the ACC loses these four, even like 3 of the 4, and they try to add, 3 other small teams in, I just don't see how you can respect the conference. I don't see how top teams would even want to come in or stay in the conference. I think a lot of that has to do with how the conference is organized and set up. And so I hope that they can fix it, but I just think they're at the point now where they're trying stuff and it's not working, and that they're hoping that, all 4 of these colleges wind up staying, or that, they can, bully them enough to say, oh, like if you guys leave us, we're just going to pick someone else up. And yeah, I get that. But look what happened to the Big 12. They're losing Texas and Oklahoma. Look what happened to the Pac-12. They're losing USC and UCLA. And it's like, is Oregon and Utah going to be the only 2 good teams left inside not Big 12? Is Oregon and USC going to want to be the only teams left and really inside the Pac-12 that are competing at a national level? And I don't think that. I think that they're going to want to switch over to the Big 10 or the SEC, or maybe if the ACC can hang on to, these 4 teams, maybe you have Oregon and Utah that shift over to, the ACC. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on that they really, really have to figure out, because if they don't, they can lose a lot of their conference and a lot of their money really fast. And so I hope the ACC stays around, and I obviously think it will. But, I think that over time, if they don't figure it out, they're going to lose a lot of their top dogs. We would take a quick break to thank our sponsors, didnt Sports. didnt Sports is an exciting NFT project that combines real-world sports and NFT culture. Behind an experienced leadership team, the project just launched their 3rd season and offers free-to-play sports prediction prizes every month. They gave away a $250 NFT for the Masters alone. Follow them on Twitter at didntsports.io. Next, let's go through the ACC power ranking. We'll go through the top 10. Number 1, Clemson. And by the way, I did not make this list, so just so you guys know. Number 1 was Clemson. I got this list from On3, by the way. 1 was Clemson, 2 was FSU, 3 UNC, 4 Louisville, 5 NC State, 6 Duke, 7 Miami. That one hurts. 8 Pitt, 9 Wake, 10 Syracuse. So in my eyes, this is how I would do it. Top 3 stays the same. 4 Louisville maybe stays just because their strength of schedule, and I think that's how they rank out, but I don't think that's how like the talent is. If you're going based on talent, I would throw Miami up there. I would move Duke above Louisville. So it would go Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Duke, Louisville, NC State, Pitt, Wake, Syracuse. So that would kind of be mine. I would basically flip that middle. It would go basically in reverse. It would go Clemson, FSU, UNC. So top three. And then instead of four being Louisville, it would be Miami. Then Duke would come up to 5. Louisville would move down to 6. NC State down to 7, and so forth. So that's kind of where that I think that the ACC, at least talent-wise, lands. And like I said, based on strength of schedule, based on how you play together, obviously these things can like shake and move. But this is what On3 kind of based, their ACC rankings on. And not that I disagree with it. I mean, obviously I do. But I just think that, when you talk about some other things like who wins the head-to-head matchup, and I think Miami has to beat we play all of them. We play Duke, we play NC State, and we play Louisville. So we have to beat all these teams. I think we're more than capable of. But it will be very interesting because some of these teams, even if Miami does beat them, Louisville could have a better schedule or a better rank based on their schedule. So the last thing that we're going to go before we get out of here, guys, is who missed the cut. So like I said earlier, there's a top 100 team. Duke had 3 out of the top 25, and obviously I think they had a couple more, maybe 1 or 2 more inside the top 100. But Miami had some guys too. We had Cameron Kitchens that made it. We had Leonard Taylor that made it. We had Akeem Mesidor that made it. So congrats to all you guys, man. That is a huge accomplishment. I know a lot of times when you play, you kind of just put your head down and say, hey, I'm gonna play as hard as I can. And if I get awards, I do. If I don't, I don't. But, obviously anytime you're inside the top 100 players and you're recognized by, a site like On3 or something like that, that's really, really big. And, just respects to you guys, anyone that made that top 100. But I'm going to talk about, 3 guys on Miami staff, or really 3 guys on Miami's roster that did not make the top 100. Not saying that they should be in it, but I'm saying by the end of the year that they definitely will be in it, or they should be in it. So number 1, Tyler Van Dyke, I think with, as you can see, number 2, Tyler Hale's a receiver. So you add receivers, we're adding offensive linemen, we're adding OCs, we're adding receiver coaches. Like, we're doing everything that we can, to help our offense succeed and succeed at a very, very high level. And I think if that happens, especially with, the arm strength, the IQ that TBD has, and you add Dawson's, ability to get guys open, and you add KB's ability, to correct mistakes and, make guys better and better, I think Tyler Van Dyke will have a really, really big year. I think it would have been inside the top 10 quarterbacks, which inevitably would put him, inside the top 100. So I think he's probably the first guy that I would say will probably be the top 100 players by the end of the year. Number 2, Tyler Harrell, really like this guy, 4.2, 4.40. That is blazing fast, which means that we will use him in so many ways because speed kills. I think that, if we can kind of use him kind of how, Coach Dawson used it, Tavon Austin, whenever, Gino was there. If you guys haven't watched that, go back and watch Tavon Austin highlights tape. You watch it, you see what I'm talking about. If we can kind of use, Tyler like Tavon, and I'm not saying that like, we don't run him deep, but, give him some slants, give him some drags, give him some stuff where, it's a rub route and he's catching a ball and he's running away from people. And obviously I know Coach Dawson does like to do that, but it's like, if we can do that and we can just get the ball in this guy's hand and allow him to make plays, I think he can be a very, very, very explosive receiver for us this year. The last one, and a lot of this is just due to size, ability, freakishness, James Williams. Okay, this guy is 6'3", 6'4". He looks the part. He's big. I think he loves football. I think he loves to be physical. And obviously we have the All-American safety Cameron Kitchens on the other side of him, and I think a lot of people are going to throw away from Cam. And so when people throw away from you, people wind up targeting James Williams. And so I think that this guy, if he can step up, if he can, do his thing like he's always done it, if he can just go out there, play football, I think that this guy will wind up ending up inside the top 100 due to his size, his ability, and honestly, the fact that I think a lot of people are going to throw his way just due to the fact that Cameron Kitchens is on the other side. So these are my 3 guys that I think, have the chance to make the top 100 by the end of the year. Is there anyone else that you guys think can make the top 100? Obviously, there's some young guys I think are really, really good that in the future will have some chances too. But is there anyone on the roster like, you're forgetting this guy, or, this is a guy that I really like that I think is a sleeper? Please let me know. And the last thing I'm going to get into before we get out of here is we're doing 2 giveaways, okay? So the first one, you guys got to make sure to comment on the YouTube video and also comment on Twitter. So we're going to do a hat. The hat has about, 6 to 8 signed autographs from some of the kids last year, and they're even on the team. I got like DJ Ivy, Andy Borgialis, some other guys. I'm going to sign it myself. I have Tate Martell. So there'll be a good, probably like 8 to 10 signatures on the hat. And I'll kind of go through the list on Twitter a little later. The next thing that we're doing is we're giving a $50 giveaway. So if you're not a Miami fan, like, well, why would I want to enter? Why would I want to do this? Well, we're also going to give you $50. So two people, one person will get a hat, one person will get a $50. Whether you want to Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, I don't really care. It's all up to you. But I do want to start doing some giveaways. So if you guys please don't mind, the tweet will be posted tomorrow at noon. I'll make sure tomorrow at noon that is a scheduled post. And from there, you guys can go ahead and comment on the tweet. I will be looking all night to see who's commenting kind of on my YouTube page. But tomorrow, the tweet will happen. You guys comment on the tweet, that'll also enroll you. So for you guys that follow me on YouTube, basically your YouTube and the tweets are dual enrollment. If you don't follow me, obviously on one or the other, you only get a single. So super excited about this opportunity. I definitely want to expand and grow this channel. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.